Welcome to today's presentation. I am a corporate pleb, and this is How to Corporate.
Today we'll be reviewing the various players from the client's end that you interact with in sales and how to vibe with them. In any corporate deal, you, as the salesperson, have to find out who you are speaking with. You have to figure out who is the decision maker, but you also have to figure out who are the stakeholders and who on the client end is your lead. For the client, their interactions with you are easy. You're the sales rep. You're their liaison to your company and the focal point for everything they have to throw at you. The client will bring an army of personnel, and while they will all be happy to tell you their inflated titles and positions, they will usually skip over the part where they upfront tell you who is making the decision and who needs your product. You get to figure that out as you go. So for you, the pleb, going into a deal, all you need on the front end is to know who your contact is and focus on them. As you progress through a deal, you will figure out who is relevant, and then you can change focus from the lead to individual stakeholders and, most important, the decision maker. Discovering who the players are, though, is your first real task. You should know your product so well that you can sleep pitch it. Once you can do this, it frees your mind up to hunt for the stakeholders in a room. In the corporate world, the client is always a group of people. Decision makers and stakeholders will be veiled to some degree. You will have to ferret out who is important to you without alienating everyone else as you search. If you screw up an interaction with any of them, you screw it up with all of them. Be prepared to interact with everyone you come across as if they were the sole decision maker until you zero in on the person or persons who are actually there to speak with you. Keeping in mind that the client is always a group of people, it's important to know who that group is usually made up of. If you are selling something that ends up being several thousands of dollars a year, know that even if you're cresting past a few $100, the client will bring out the entire pantheon of department heads. Companies take their annual spend and budget seriously. If you are selling and they are buying, they will be involved to a high degree. Most parties assembled will be there simply to satisfy a singular question facing their particular group. Does product X do Y? If you can satisfy their question, you can diffuse an entire department. Overall, each group represented from the client will have a small piece of the puzzle that they are looking to you to answer for them. Procurement and finance will more or less only be interested in if your product does the needed task for the lowest bid. They are cost driven and their questions will revolve around pricing. IT will want to get into the weeds of any technical ramifications of what you are pushing at them and if it's feasible to implement and how much time investment it will take from them and their departments. The less time and involvement on their end, of course, the better. Admin assistants and HR coordinators will be there typically to chair the meetings from the client end, so mostly just a framing device. Legal and RFP teams will typically want to make sure they understand your proposal on paper and that it won't affect them legally and financially if everything you sell them explodes. And then you have wildcard factors of potpourri attendees, interns with nothing to do, executives with nothing to do but who want to feel important by joining any meeting, various personnel invited to a sales pitch where nothing is expected of them. As the sales rep, you will interact with all of them at once, usually alone, and be expected to answer all of their questions, needs, concerns, and spooling out of random thoughts within the confines of a limited time. Oh, and you need to win too. So while you are pitching your wares is where you will be hunting for your decision maker if you haven't already uncovered them. The real decision maker will show themselves during a demonstration. If they don't, you actually just need to flat out ask who the decision maker is. As in matter of factly, just ask, who is the decision maker? Sometimes a club to the head is the only way to get the client to wake up. Now, if you have not figured it out, in sales, you always end up going into a room cold. No prep work can lay the ground for you to be familiar with a client. Be at ease going into a room cold. It's up to you to make a semblance of order from the chaos. Do not panic. First and foremost, your client can smell fear, and a fearful sales rep hawking their wares is a deliciously fun target. A client can abuse a vendor salesperson without consequence, and there's a lot of pent-up aggression in the corporate world. If you show yourself to be a punching bag, you can expect a punch to the gut. So do not panic. And here's why you don't have to panic. You already know what's going to happen. You know what questions you're going to get. How does your product work? What's the implementation timeline? What's the cost? What if there's a problem? What does support look like? Is that really the cost? Role play with yourself. What would you ask you as a salesperson about your product? If you can answer yourself, you will be able to answer the client. Don't see the client as the individual members of a team. See them as one client with many voices. Just take each question as it comes, answer it, and move forward. If you do not know the answer to something, you simply say, that's a good question. I don't have visibility of that up front, but I can find you an answer and get back to you on it shortly. A sales rep doesn't have to know all the answers. Being in front of a client can be daunting, but remember they're looking to solve for a problem. Even if it's a problem they don't know they have, you are there to help them. Don't be afraid. If the client wasn't interested in your help, you would not be in front of them. Be that person who is there to help them and walk them through what that help looks like. If you can show them how to solve for their X and demonstrate a good product, that's what you are there to do.
Thank you for joining me. Please come back and explore the corporate world from the standpoint of a common worker pleb at any time. See you soon.